Garganacl is one of the most iconic new Pokemon in Gen 9. This is the first ever Pokemon to start a pyramid scheme within the Pokemon universe, which was very controversial. And some astute observers have noticed that Garganacl actually looks a lot like Donkey Kong's head trapped inside of a pyramid. How Donkey Kong's head got in there nobody knows, but that's besides the point. In the early Gen 9 OU metagame, this thing was a monster. It was everywhere. Defensive rock types tend not to be very good. Often they don't have enough special defense to withstand common special hits, and their ground and water weakness is damning. But Garganacl has a lot to make up for it, with very solid stats, notably a high base HP and defense stat and serviceable special defense. And this ability right here, Purifying Salt, this is an amazing ability that grants a complete immunity to all status effects. Even the secondary effects of moves can't affect Garganacl. And on top of that, it also provides a resistance to Ghost. Ghost damage against Garganacl is halved. Garganacl also has Recover for immediate healing, Stealth Rock for valuable utility, and an option I'm sure you're all aware of is Salt Cure, Garganacl's signature move. This is a weak physical attack with only 40 power, but this applies the Salt Cure secondary effect, which deals 1/8 of a Pokemon's max health each turn, and 1/4 of their max health if they're Steel or Water type. When I first heard about what this move did, it didn't sound that powerful to me, but in practice, I quickly realized how strong this effect actually was. What's powerful about Salt Cure is the fact that very little can actually switch in against it safely. Although you may think a status effect like Toxic or Will-O-Wisp is more crippling, and it is usually. The enemy can't switch out and heal it off, and Toxic deals more damage than this does. Will-O-Wisp halves the enemy's attack. But status ailments have their downsides. Certain types are immune to status ailments. Fire types are immune to burn. Poison and Steel types are immune to Toxic Poison. There are also more Pokemon in this metagame that are immune to status ailments. Garganacl itself is, and so is Gholdengo. Will-O-Wisp and Toxic are not completely free clicks. They can be punished by type immunities. Gholdengo, moves like Taunt. But Salt Cure, on the other hand, is pretty much a completely free click. Nothing can really switch in against it. And the fact that it punishes Steel and Water types is also really significant, because Steel and Water types are some of the most common types in the game. They always rise to the top in competitive for their amazing defensive qualities. So this quickly became one of the most central defensive Pokemon in the Gen 9 metagame. If this amazing ability, good stats, and great move pool weren't enough, it is also one of the best benefactors of the new Terra mechanic. By terastallizing into a powerful defensive type like Fairy or Water, Garganacl can overcome the weaknesses of its base rock typing and become an indestructible wall. In the early metagame, this thing was seriously dominating and a lot of people wanted it banned. But we did start to see some adaptations. The new item Covert Cloak became a popular way to counteract Salt Cure. This is an item that makes you immune to the secondary effects of attacks, which include Salt Cure and other effects like Scald and Thunderbolt Paralysis Chance, etc. It's a very good item, and Pokemon that were particularly vulnerable against Salt Cure, like Gholdengo with its Steel typing or Toxapex with its Water type, started to use Covert Cloak a lot more. You also started to see sets like this rise in prominence. Substitute Great Tusk with Bulk Up. The Salt Cure secondary effect does not go through Substitute, so you completely punish their low power attack, gain free turns to set up, and even scout if they spend their Terra or not, so this became another way to punish the passive nature of Garganacl. Garganacl did maintain its OU status as a popular defensive Pokemon, but it wasn't quite the dominant force it was in the beginning, and eventually, as more Pokemon came out, the power level started to rise in the format. Garganacl actually dropped to UU in October. Pretty surprising to see such a dominant force in the early metagame fall down to the UU tier, but that did happen. It wasn't popular anymore. Now, I've always thought that Garganacl would rise back up to OU prominence eventually, as maybe some of the more powerful new threats got banned, and maybe the metagame shifted more towards balanced teams once again, as that does tend to happen. And at the moment, Garganacl is sitting in the UUBL tier, meaning it did get banned from UU, but it still isn't OU by usage. Does that mean Garganacl's in a bit of a limbo state? Too powerful for the UU tier, not quite good enough for OU? I don't think so, personally. I think people forgot about Garganacl, and sometimes when the metagame forgets about you, that's the best time to come back, because nobody's building around you anymore. When Garganacl was a central force in the metagame, Covert Cloak Pokemon were everywhere. Now, not so much. And I've been noticing a bit of a trend. It seems like right now, a lot of the teams peaking very high positions on the ladder are using Garganacl. This team by the player Joltinjoe reached number 3 on the ladder with an impressive rating of 2015. It was formerly using Gliscor, but that has been replaced now with a Zapdos. This Curse Garganacl set has been seen in the past, but at the moment this set seems particularly good. Since people aren't considering Garganacl as much, Salt Cure is more spammable. There's less Covert Cloak, less substitute sets trying to punish Garganacl. But what's nice about this set is that Curse Earthquake is a good way to punish the Covert Covert Cloak users. You can greatly threaten the most common Covert Cloak user, Gholdengo, with the Curse Earthquake combo. Super effective damage will eat Gholdengo alive. Slowking Galar sometimes uses Covert Cloak, and that's also a Pokemon weak to ground. Toxapex, weak to ground. Even if the enemy's Covert Cloak user is not weak to ground, Curse is still going to be a good way to punish them. They can't status you, you're completely immune, and you will slowly snowball to the point of being a dangerous threat. In the past, it was easy to take advantage of Garganacl as it was too passive, but this Curse set makes Garganacl less passive. It turns it into a potential win condition. And in the current metagame, I think this set is really excellent. In this replay here, we can see a Garganacl Salt Cure and incoming Zamazenta. I mean, it's in an excellent position. It's 1v1ing this Zamazenta cleanly. Body Press is going to do minimal damage, while Zamazenta does not have the luxury of leftovers here. This Garganacl is just getting free turns to spam Curse, and how can the rest of the team handle it? Rillaboom may have super effective damage, but it can't withstand all these defense boosts. Rillaboom is now forced to Terra Grass Woodhammer, which only does 58. Garganacl hits it with the huge Salt Cure. Not even that low, still at 54%, and a simple Great Tusk Sacrifice. All that effort and Garganacl is alive and well, not even a scratch. It's about to defeat this Manaphy 1v1 with the Salt Cure, and it's as simple as that, folks. The pyramid scheme goes all the way to the top. Garganacl is reaping the benefits. Already covered this Maushold team that hit number 4 on the ladder in a previous video, focusing mostly on the creative Maushold usage, but I didn't even mention the fact that Garganacl's here, folks. Another new development that makes Garganacl a bit better is the support of knockoff users. Knockoff got a lot more distribution since the DLC. This Weavile with knockoff right here can lure in those Covert Cloak users, remove their item, and now Garganacl can spam Salt Cure all at once. As you can see, this team is quite weak to fighting, so the Garganacl is using a Fairy Terra type, and in most games you're going to spend Terra on your Garganacl. Shout out to VicbossMG for this team and the impressive results. And this team by the player Spin da Bloc shows off another new metagame development that has improved Garganacl's viability, and that is the buffing of Rillaboom. Rillaboom receiving the important Grassy Glide option once again with the DLC was a significant buff that propelled Rillaboom back into OU relevance, which is great news for all teammates that appreciate the effect of Grassy Terrain. Grassy Terrain buffs grass moves, grants chip healing to everything on the field, and also nerfs the power of Earthquake on your side of the field. Nerfed Earthquake damage is great alongside Heat Treant, and this is a combo that we've seen ever since back in Gen 7 with Tapu Bulu. And Garganacl is obviously weak to Earthquake too, so it benefits greatly from the Grassy Terrain. Garganacl also gets a lot of value from the Grassy Terrain chip heal, especially if it's committing to these Iron defense boosts and the Fairy Terra type to enhance its defensive value. In conclusion, folks, I think that the fall of Garganacl was greatly exaggerated. This Pokemon has always been great. I think people just forgot about it. Maybe some things shifted that weren't favorable for it, but we're starting to see a resurgence of Garganacl at the high ranks. It's returning to its former glory a little bit, and I would not be surprised to see Garganacl rise back to the OU tier in the next shift. The metagame has adapted to Garganacl before, so maybe we'll see that happen again. Metagames are cyclical like that. We'll have to see how things develop, folks. This gen has been a roller coaster overall. We've seen multiple Pokemon dominate in OU, fall down to UU, come back to OU, get banned to Ubers. I can't even keep track anymore. Are we going to see Garganacl in Ubers next month? Who knows? It's possible. Thanks for watching, folks, and if Garganacl sends you any shady looking links to what he describes as a business opportunity, I would ignore that. This guy has nefarious intent. Thank you all for watching. Thank you to the patrons for your continued support, and thank you as well to everyone who has donated to my Gen 3 OU tournament, ADV Revival.
Oh, KO by one hit! It scattered Spike!
The money got different, cause of what I'm spending.